Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. On today's show, I have Calvin West, who is a music producer and lyric video artist. Calvin reached out to me about some music and lyric video work that he does that I think is pretty interesting. It's a cool way to get your music out there. And he sees it as like an extension of the art, which I'm interested to talk to him about. He also does mixing and mastering. You can find out about him at calvinwest.com. And Calvin, I want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for coming on today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's good to talk to you. I think you've done like a cool thing with your work in that, you know, there's so many interesting ways to do music these days. It's not just like the old way of like just performing or just doing this or that. We all do so many jobs. And I think you've carved out some cool little niches for yourself where you've got different ways you've turned music into your life and your livelihood. So I'm very excited to talk to you about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with this age of releasing your own music being so easy, I think if you're not doing those extra steps to make sure that your music actually reaches an audience, you're missing out on your career basically as a musician. Yeah, a lot of factors that play into your musical adventure.
Right. Yeah, we have that like amazing power now where we can just put out music, you know, and you could do it in 5 minutes basically with some of the services out there. And suddenly your music is out to the world. That used to be the challenge to get your music out.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
It would be, here's my disc, here's my tape. And that was the only way.
Yeah, exactly. Until you get lucky. And now I think the challenge now is, especially if you don't have a following, just getting people who aren't your parents to listen to 30 seconds of your music. That's just so difficult. And you can be good, you know, because they have to listen to your music for 30 seconds to determine whether or not they like it. But just getting people to listen to 30 seconds of your music seems impossible.
Yeah. It's true. I can remember when things started streaming and going digital, and there was sort of this like decision, like, should we do it for free? You know, and now it's like you can't even get people to listen to it for free. You know, you have to really work at that. That's not just a given that just because it's free, someone's going to care.
In fact, one of the things I thought we could discuss, I hadn't planned out in what order, but now there's this trend of independent artists paying Facebook ads and Instagram ads to get their music just heard, and it's a thing now. There's several videos on YouTube on how to do it and how to set up your ad, etc. And some people are actually getting a return on it because, especially with the heavy reliance on Spotify's algorithmic playlists, it's just become it makes sense financially for some people to just place ads to get pay people to just please listen to my music. So crazy times. Interesting.
Much different from that way of thinking of like, maybe we can just give it away. And it's you can't. You can't just give it away. You have to actually pay to get it heard. But that's not uncommon. I mean, that's in a way we've kind of like all have to become like our own mini record labels every time we put something out. So a good label would have put some advertisement into the releases and promotional stuff. So now that we again have those tools at our fingertips, it's very easy on your Instagram to just hit that little promote button or Facebook boost.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I meant when I said you're no longer just a musician. You don't just show up, play, and leave. You have to do all these things. And otherwise, you're just not getting it to your full potential. So,
yeah, we do. We have to be kind of like specialists in all avenues of the process.
Yeah, ain't that true? Yeah.
So
it's hard to keep up.
I think so. It's a grind. If it was easy, it wouldn't be special. It wouldn't be.
there's depends on how much you want to go into each little thing. You have to be good at Photoshop if you want to make a little make a nice post, to not just post like, hey, my music is out. You could be good at Photoshop and get more of that. You could be good at like a video editing program and get more of your videos. There's just depends on how much you want to put time into every little, avenue of getting your music heard. It's just the more you get out of it. So yeah, uh, yeah, you can't ignore, but you can't also keep up with all of it. So it's a struggle.
Yeah, a lot of people all the time talk about it where, I thought I was just playing my guitar and writing songs, and now I'm learning how to be an engineer, producer. I have to learn how to master. I have to design my website. I have to learn
Exactly.
marketing
Yeah.
and digital photo editing and all
Yeah.
that, like that
Yeah.
stuff you said. No,
I
you
didn't
have
even
no idea what
mention
you're
the
getting
mixing.
into.
I didn't even mention the mixing and mastering, because for me it's just now that's included in being a musician. But yeah, you forget that there's most insane musicians who are, uh, especially the older folk, don't know a thing about recording and producing their own music, but
Mhm.
they're musicians no less.
Yeah. Well, all those jobs were separate people and separate teams of
Yeah,
people that they would do that. And if you were the talent, you came in and performed, and someone else worried about, putting that performance together and editing and mixing. And then someone else would worry about the mastering, and someone else would worry about production and
what you're
the
wearing on
release.
stage. And
Oh yeah, sure, right? So it's cool in a lot of ways, of course, right? Like I love it. It's amazing we get to do any of this stuff, and even that we get to sort of like it's not too hard to like get behind the scenes of what goes into all of this stuff, where I think many years ago it was more mysterious, a lot more like
for
industry
sure,
secrets and
for sure, the way we have it now is definitely way better for anyone just starting out, because the process is far more democratic. There's nobody standing in your way and releasing your music. That's already the first step. But now there's the getting your music heard, and that's shifted from a record label promoting you to just the algorithm gods of Spotify and Apple Music. So it's become, and since the algorithms more or less rely on data, well, no, the algorithms are data, but they more or less rely on data from people and just not taking into account the bots. It's a lot more democratic. So if your music is being listened to, then you will have an easier time to build on that, let's say.
mm. Yeah, I think that's definitely the cool thing about it, but it can be the tough thing too, because there's so much more to stand out against and more noise to get heard through,
For
to
sure.
cut through to make it. So you've got
Yeah, like,
a potential tool for people to use that you like to do, and I thought I'd maybe just ask you just to tell us about this whole concept of just the music lyric video.
okay. So a lyric video, I'm sure everyone by now has seen it, but maybe that's just me because I work in it. But a lyric video is just some people release it instead of a music video, and that's features the lyrics of the song, usually in various creative ways appearing on the screen to um, deliver the message of the song, and also get the viewer to also have something on the screen than just an artwork to see. So it's kind of like a music video. It usually costs a lot less, and it gets the message of the song across. So, and obviously, there are in betweens. So there are some music videos that have also lyrics on them. So that could be the artist just singing to the camera and the lyrics appearing next to them, or it could just be a full-blown music video with some of the keywords just appearing on the screen.
Mm.
It could be anywhere in between the two. I've seen all those variants happening. So they're quite trendy. They've been going up at least, well, depends on what you consider a lyric video, but let's say they've been popularized in the last 10 years. So I hear from some of my clients that are record labels managing a few different artists that often their lyric videos get more views than music videos. Well, specifically, he said their lyric videos get more views than music videos, but I find that a little hard to believe because I think people like to see artists, like faces. But that's one source of information telling me that lyric videos get more views than music videos. That
Well, I could imagine, for one, like a music video is a huge production. There's a lot more. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a bigger production, I would say. And YouTube is the world's second largest search engine. Next to Google, which they're both Google anyway. But that's
right,
people do a lot of their searching on YouTube. That little box to find your next video is a search engine. And if you've only got, the time to produce, say release an album, one or two, maybe three, like singles, if we'll still call them that, to use like an old term, I guess. But, you got like you kind of few songs that you can actually make a video for. Then you've got another 7 or 10 songs, depending on your album, that don't get anything and that won't show up on that search engine. So I think a nice fix for that is something like a music lyric video that at least still has your song up there and it's able to be found on what is the second largest search engine, YouTube.
Yeah, that that's a treatment that some people seem to take because, including most recently, I saw Billie Eilish. She released a very simple. Her entire album is just the cover art with the lyrics fading in, fading out on there. And I'd imagine that couldn't have cost much to make. And now she has all the songs on there with more than just the static artwork. And I think her fans would appreciate that. And in fact, since she released that, or actually, I'm not sure when she released that, so I shouldn't say that. But in the last couple of months, I've gotten like 3 emails like, hey, how much if I want to do my entire album like Billie Eilish is just simply fading in, fading out? It's still happening. Even though it's just much simpler because lyric videos, typically, if you just look up, let's say Ed Sheeran or whatever, it's going to have some complex animation graphics thrown in there and whatnot. But she went because what I'm getting at is they can also be huge production with a team involved. Like somebody could produce the artwork, another person could animate it and bring it together. But she went a completely simple way for the entire album, just have lyrics fading in, fading out, and it does, let's say, half the job or more than half the job of having it there.
Right. I could understand. I wonder if like this data that lyric videos are getting more views or more popular or whatever it was has to do with the fact that you can probably produce many more of them than you can the full-blown traditional music video. So, if you have 7 of them that are lyric videos and 3 that are music, that's...
I would give that the benefit of the doubt, but I remember the conversation I was having with the director who hires me basically, and it was specifically about, for the same song, they release a music video and a lyric video, because I was in disbelief. I was like, how can that be? And sure enough, shortly after, I did one work for them, and it could also be that they released the lyric video first and the music video second. But currently, that work I did, the lyric video has quite a bit more views than the music video, even though the music video is a full-blown, involves the artists dancing and singing in costume, and it looks amazing. And the lyric video I just did in a couple of days in this room. So.
Right. Well, it does give people access to the lyrics, obviously, and that's a big part of our experience, knowing what the lyrics are. It's always been fun for me throughout my life, going to the album, looking at the lyrics or looking them up online or whatever it is, just to find out what's really going on there compared to what you think is going on. just so you can, especially if you're learning songs too, as a musician, and they're great to have.
That reminds me. Quite often I see on Reddit people complaining about lyric videos, saying that they can't read the lyrics in time to sing along with it, because typically in a lyric video the lyrics come up like the exact same beat as they're being sung,
Right.
and most often than not there's people responding like, that's not what they're for, that's just so you can read it,
Uh-huh.
and it's like an artistic sort of extension usually for the. I just found that funny because I think some people think they should be this, in karaoke where it comes up and then a bouncing
Yeah, I
ball
was
comes.
thinking about that too. Yeah.
So typically they're not that.
Right.
Just to have that.
That's a different thing. Yeah. I guess they're looking for it for their own purposes to sing along. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting. Like, it's an extension, I guess, of the album art. If you want it to be, of course, you could just have text. But
Yeah.
I was recently clearing out my parents' attic, and I came across my old CDs, and I have one of those like albums you open up and then with the sleeves that you put them all in. And I had such a great experience flipping through it. Surprisingly, I thought I'll never need these CDs. I don't even really have a CD player anymore, except like in the car, and new cars don't even have them anymore. But I really enjoyed the CD artwork itself, like the print on the CD, which is a type of art form that has kind of gotten lost, that I sort of forgot about. Like, records don't really have that. They just have the sticker. It's not usually the same as like the CD itself. Art was
Nowadays they do.
they have,
I
but
mean, it.
I guess like what I'm saying is like there's something there, but the CD itself was always different, and
Yeah, it
that
was
had a
print
feeling.
on it. Yeah, yeah. I
And
see
the
what you're
feeling of
saying.
flipping through the physical album of CDs, it just brought back so many memories, and how I could identify the CD just by like the colors, and
Yeah,
those colors
yeah,
play
yeah,
into
yeah.
like how I perceive the album even.
Right. Even because you'd have the CD stacked, even just like the little sleeve, is it called the sleeve on the like the
On the
side?
side, yeah. I
They
think
would have a special color and a type of font that would just say the name of the album, and you'd immediately recognize it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, those little things. I was surprised to like miss my CDs, like like tapes I kind of understood because they have that worn quality. Records have that sound analog quality. But I was a little surprised to be like, oh, CDs are cool too. you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're coming back.
they're coming back.
I think.
It got me thinking that what you're talking about is almost like a new level to album art. Where we don't always get it as much, the physical thing to look at. You get like the image on your phone, I guess, if you're going through like Spotify or iTunes. But the whole like packaging is sort of getting lost a little bit. And but then to think about it as like an extension in the digital world, like you're talking about with if you do some kind of lyric video that is a piece of art itself and not just the ball, telling you when to
Right,
sing the lyric.
right. Uh, I'm glad that you mentioned this, because when I get an email and a client says, I want a lyric video, and I almost always ask, do you have anything specific in mind? And often they don't. The first thing I always ask for is, show me the artwork, because very often they have an artwork that they already like, that they already feel identifies with the song. And personally, I think it's really cool to have the artwork and the lyric video be of like matching
Hmm.
theme. So if they have no preference, I by default almost always produce something in the theme of their album artwork or single artwork. Also, that makes it uniquely theirs, because you could just. Some people like to use stock footage. I do that when they ask me to find specific scenery, but if left to my own devices, I just go with the artwork, and that makes it uniquely theirs. And
Mm.
I like that. I like thinking of the video as an extension of the artwork as well. So
Mm.
glad you went there.
Well, I think that it's nice to have some kind of consistency, because you are like telling the story. Music is setting a mood. It's like creating a place and a feeling and a vibe and all of that kind of stuff. And it would be a little strange to have something associated with that just not in line with the rest of the feeling. And I guess that's like part of what I experienced flipping through the CD albums was that like each individual CD had the vibe of the album. And a lot of times if it was like a blue color, the album felt blue to me, or if it was like orange and red, it had like a different feeling. And some of them like pair really well. And it's just it's interesting how there's this whole like world you're creating when you're making your song, your album, your EP or whatever. And the more you can stick with those themes, the more it brings people into it.
Right. Yeah. 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 Because the CD had like several pages, and as you flip through it, it's as you said it. I just remembered from one CD I had, and on the artwork, it was a CD by Funeral for a Friend, a Welsh band, and on the artwork there was a schoolgirl standing in front of some lockers, and as you flip through it, it's just the lockers in school and some scenery, and then as you flip through it, there's one where she has her school vest open, and in there you see to keep this safe for work, some items that suggest that something terrible is about to happen in that school, and you're like, whoa, chill. But it's like, the point is that it was all in the similar like direction, it all works together. So yeah, I see it that way when I'm working on videos as well. It should match what they started. What they started with the song is reflected on the album artwork, should be reflected in the lyric video, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's what I'm noticing about your approach and what I'm liking about this idea. Because I never really thought about it too much until we started talking, to be honest, as an extension of the album and the world of the album. But it's a great opportunity to just further expand that world that you're creating.
Yeah. Which is why, to give examples of, look, obviously you don't always have to do that, and you can experiment with different things and it can work out. But to give some examples of when I think they don't work out was just a couple of months ago. I had so I don't always get hired by the artists or the labels. Sometimes it's their manager, sometimes it's their promotion team. I don't understand what's going on exactly in the line of work, but it just the result is that sometimes I have to work through marketing people and whatnot. So this artist had a more or less typical pop song. It starts off slow, chorus one, beat kicks in, and it's a bit louder, more energetic. Verse two dials back down a little. Chorus two, bigger still. Bridge comes in, goes back to the super soft and quiet, and then last chorus, just all the instruments, all our energy, it's all happening. We're going dancing, it's Friday, whatever. And what I had done, what I always do, is try to reflect that. So verse one was very soft. I go soft fades, soft blurs. Chorus one, I build up a bit of energy in terms of how the words are appearing. They are maybe a bit shakier, maybe they're bouncing or whatever. Then we go back to the bridge when it calms down. I go back to the super soft stuff. And then in the final chorus, I go all out, particles bouncing around and by that point, the viewer has also gotten familiar with the text, so it doesn't have to be super focused on the text, just like have, and everything was working well with the album artwork they had sent me. So they reviewed it, and the feedback I got from the marketing team was like, can you do what you did in the very last chorus for the entire song? And I'm thinking, sure, it's your video. I'm going to do it however you want. But there was like, the other day I was watching your podcast and you said something that was just a perfect analogy for this. It's like when you said, if you go out and there's thousands of birds, you're like, wow, look at all the birds. But if there's like one single bird, you just can focus on there and see all the beauty in that one bird. So I find that the song, musicians seem to understand this intuitively. Most musicians seem to understand this. When they write a soft part to build up to something bigger, and you reflect that on a video, and then the marketing team comes and it's like, just do the whole thing like the ending, just more movement, more birds, more. Yeah, you know, and I did it and they approved, but that's not how I would have done it. And it's easy for me to sit here and go like, they're all idiots, you know, so I don't want to do that. I like to assume that they know something that I don't. They probably know something like, if there's not enough movement on the screen within the first 6 seconds, the viewer will drop out. So I don't know. They're probably working from a different angle on this. They're probably like, we're going to reach new people and there needs to be something exciting happening. But I like to think the artist would have preferred my way.
Right. The more artistful way, you know.
I think so.
Well, I think that is like kind of the whole point of why we have those quiet parts in the songs, and that's why we don't hit the listener. Sometimes you do, but you don't usually give them everything in the first few bars. There's a buildup. When I'm talking about like creating beats and building sounds, especially in a sampling class I teach at Berkeley, there's like found sounds you're using. Like, find sounds around your house. You know, what does this make? You know, just move it around and click things and stuff and build a beat. If you take every sound, say it's 16 sounds you found, and just start with a full blast beat, you just hear a beat. But when it starts with like the pen clicking, and then you add in like the clap or whatever, you get to appreciate everything one at a time, and it becomes this process that keeps your interest compared to like, oh, there's this crazy beat going on, now what? And it's lost real fast, the attention. I understand what you're saying. I guess that's the challenge of when you're a hired gun too, you know. Sometimes you're asked to do what you don't think is as effective as what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Yeah, as I said, they probably know something I don't, or approaching it from a different angle. But again, what you're saying seems to appeal to the artists, the musicians, and basically what I'm trying to achieve is that people understand that the video is no different. Since we use all these tools and all these techniques in music production, like sometimes you do a high pass filter or like this telephone effect to just before a big part, so that drive the people's ears to one specific thing and then throw something else at them. Same applies in video. The same principles can apply in video, and I think that will deliver a more impactful message. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And I wonder, this made me think about something I read recently about song structures in general and just how they've changed over the years. And we've gone from really simple, just like A, B, A kind of song structures to verse, chorus, bridge, and all of that. And what's starting to become more popular are these structures where hook, just like kind of
Right.
right away the hook starts the song, and then there's another hook,
Yeah,
and there's always these like it's like this like kind of like attention deficit listener approach where
definitely.
we got to get them at every turn. And I think like the question it made me think of is like what happened to like the journey, the build, you know. And I guess, you know, we were talking about it right in the beginning. It's so hard to get people to hear your music. And if they do, like they've probably made a decision if they're going to keep listening within 5 or 10 seconds. I'm
Yeah,
guilty of that myself, you know, because music
same.
is so easy to come by.
Right.
When I used to buy all those CDs when I was younger, I
Then
was
you're stuck with it.
invested.
You have to listen to.
Yeah, maybe it'll grow on me. I'll listen to it 5 times before I really give up on it. That does not
Yeah.
happen anymore.
No, you
It-
just skip. And you know what else is a gripe of mine? People no longer just listen to music. And what I mean by that is just sit down and listen to it, not while scrolling through something, not while watching something else. And that, as a musician, because I spend a lot of time in putting in a sound here or something. And when somebody is just like, yeah, I'll listen to it, and they're like, whatever, and they're like, okay, it was nice. I'm like, I do, you know, we go all the distance, and it's just difficult. People's attention just, it needs to. And to build on that, and what you were saying earlier on how the structures of songs are changing, one interesting, I think it was a video I saw about how the chart topping songs are all becoming, like, they had done the data science behind it, and they were all becoming a certain duration, which is like 3 minutes, just getting shorter in general, because back then we used to have 8 minute songs with like a 3 minute guitar solo or whatever. That doesn't appeal. That doesn't just doesn't catch the audience right away anymore. It has to go. So they're just becoming shorter and shorter, and just sticking to certain key, and just the variation is going away.
yeah, I know. I mean, definitely like popular music has always had its trends, and it's designed to be consumed by the mass. And now too, music is so ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's in the grocery store. It's like playing on the bus ride, and we just have it everywhere. Whereas back in the old days, way before us, you had to see a musician play. So it was something you would, let's listen to this because this isn't everywhere. We don't get to hear this a lot.
Right, right.
I think I think there's been like a change, probably around the time as the internet happened, where you know I grew up MTV and the radio is where you got your music, you know, and that was that. But now you can go into so many like little worlds, little side genres. You know, you like math metal with like certain, you know, electronic components and a DJ record scratching. Like there's like every little genre in the world, and there's a little community for it. But that's like for serious music fans, like people that are into music. A lot of people are just the casual listener, where they just want something that sounds fun playing when they're hanging out, when they're driving the car to the beach or something. Like it's not so much about the consumption of the music as it is just, you know, so it's a different thing. I think it's a different person. So I think we have like differing types of listeners, and probably the people that are like prone to sit down and really get into it are musicians half the time themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like a specialist thing, I guess. You know, like everyone drives a car, but like some people like, you know, work on their car and put their, you know, super engines. I don't hardly know anything about cars myself, but
Same.
you know what I'm saying, right? Like you
Yeah,
can,
definitely.
we all eat food, right? But some people, you know, probably can't understand how we can just like eat a sandwich watching TV and not even thinking about
Yeah.
what it tastes like half the time.
They
Not
turn
even
it into a
experiencing.
science.
Yeah, an art. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the Berkeley. You teach at Berkeley. Just wanted to mention that I've taken a few online courses that they offer, and one of them specifically is so good that I've recommended it to I don't know how many people. The one Technology of Music Production
Mm-hmm.
at I think it's by, I don't know if you would even know this, Loudon Stearns.
Oh yeah, Loudon. Yeah, him and Aaron Barra are the authors of the course that I teach, the sampling course. Oh, Loudon
Cool.
Stearns is amazing. He knows, as you know, I guess, taking his course.
It's such a good course. Like I've made music most of my life, and I took it, let's say, uh, 4 or 5 years ago, and I didn't know what the difference between a TS and the TRS cable was, but it's just like he starts from the basics and just makes you understand all these concepts of. Uh, for, I didn't know that it would make a difference to put the EQ or the compressor one before the other or not.
Mhm.
Just as a person who came from a more music into production, but the way he explains it, for instance, in that course, that it's like a chain or a water flow, like the audio goes into one and comes into, now it's so obvious, of course
Mm.
it makes a difference, but it just these very some basic and some advanced concepts explained so well. I've recommended that course to so many people, and uh,
Mm.
just wanted to let you know.
Oh yeah, I would recommend anything that has his name on it before I even saw it. Just because he's great. He knows his stuff, and his teaching style is fun and entertaining,
Yeah,
and very informative. Um, when I started teaching this sampling course, I was excited to go through it myself. Just to watch their
yeah,
videos because they do a lot of cool stuff in there. But those are incredibly important concepts. If you're not using the right cable, that can make a
yeah,
huge difference.
yeah.
And the signal chain and how the audio flows. I think
Right,
I learned that for the first time when I first got guitar pedals, and I started moving like the distortion, then the reverb, and then you switch it around. You're like, whoa! Now I'm distorting all of that reverb, and things are a huge mess.
right,
It's
right. It makes more sense in the hardware because you
yeah.
physically put one into
You
the other,
see it,
right?
right? You
Yeah,
see, I start
definitely. Now
here
the
and it
sound,
gets to
yeah,
here. Yeah,
yeah,
I think I'm really happy that I started before like the whole computer thing really took off and I got to work on like tape and 4 tracks and all of that kind of
cool.
stuff. Just because that physical thing is often what you're seeing on the screen in this visual metaphor. I mean, even if you think of like the arrangement view in your DAW, I mean, that's really just like the tape on a tape machine. It's left to right. And
Yeah,
that concept was just carried over to the screen. And I love Ableton Live because they kind of were the first ones to say, well, it doesn't really have to be left to right like a tape anymore, does it? And then with the session view, you can have like all these little things and you can move them around and not be so linear. But having that understanding a little bit, before that and just, yeah, moving my
right,
pedals around and being like, oh man, like listen to how much
right,
more the tremolo cuts out the volume on when I put it after the reverb compared to when I put it before the reverb, and the reverb just mushes it back together.
right. Yeah, that reminds me of, I don't know if this is true, but it makes sense that when the steering wheel was invented, I don't know how many years after the car was invented, but because people were used to horses, they would just use
Oh, wow.
ropes or whatever to steer the vehicles. So it's possible that we're now in a stage going from physical consoles into digital format that we're still doing some things in ways that we don't need to. It makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I think that linear approach is a good example. I think you see it a lot in touchscreen apps too. there's a lot of apps that are, it has a knob on the screen and you're trying to like push the knob with your finger. You don't know if you go in a circle or just up and down or left.
Right.
It can be kind of confusing. But then other apps come along where it's designed for the screen and it just makes more sense that way. Where no, it's not a
Right.
physical, it's not a visual representation of something physical. It's this whole, it's an XY pad, which is maybe makes more sense on a touch surface.
Yeah. Yeah. Had
I
to
find
try
that
all the.
interesting. Yeah.
I think it evolved, like, because there was. I remember the first time I held an iPod Touch. No, no, just an iPod, not the iPod Touch. That we had to scroll the wheel, and that's touch, but it's not a screen. So
Right.
I'm like, whoa, this is affecting the volume. But I don't think that would work on a touch screen. And
Uh-huh.
I think with smartphones, all these things existed, and now there's different standards emerging on how an app should look and how a menu should be. I think Google has a whole page for it. So like how to make your app friendly to touch
Mm,
and whatnot, and the
right.
websites as well.
Yeah, that's something we're learning and figuring out. I miss the scroll wheel iPod,
No,
because
still, it's like,
it had that physical feeling. Like, if I was driving and trying to change the music, I could just swirl my finger around to get to like the letter S to find whatever I want to hear. And there was like a
yeah,
clicking sound that like,
yeah.
so
Is
you knew
this
you're
in my
moving.
head, or did it also have this feedback a little bit when you scrolled? Am I imagining it? But I think it had like this little, you feel it
Yeah,
when
at
you
least
turn it.
there's a sound. I'd have to try it again. It's been so long, but you did push the button. I just found it like a lot easier to find what I needed compared to like on the phone where I have to go into the app and you have to look at it. So like for me, like I think it's a bad idea to like be trying to change your music while you're driving, where it used to just be a
Right.
lot easier. Put in the
There's
CD,
voice
put in the
command
tape.
now.
That's true. That's something I'd never think of.
Reminds me of a funny.
Should use that.
I wanted to know if my Google Home would get this. So I called it out. I'm not going to say it now, not to trigger anyone who might be listening devices. So I called it out and I said, play and sure enough, it got it. You know the song I'm referring to, right?
Is that like the
By
crash test dummies?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, got it. Yeah,
It,
that's
it
cool.
it got it. It got it. I,
Yeah,
I, I was impressed.
yeah, that is pretty cool when you can just say to your phone, "Hey, whatever you call your phone, just play a song," and it just comes on. Like, yeah, that is kind of magical. I never use that in the car. I don't know why. I don't use
I
that
don't use
much
it
at
on
all.
the No, I don't use it on the phone, but I got this home thing that they gave me from the phone company for free as a gift of staying with them or something. So now there's a spying device in my
Yeah,
kitchen.
this is for free, so we can listen to you.
But yeah, it but it plays music. So I mean, while I do the dishes, so I think
Yeah,
my policy with this compromising your data has always been I'm willing to tolerate it if I'm getting something in return. And if I
right,
just get to say, play my music, and it does, I'm like, okay, sure, you can listen to me singing along with the
right.
doing the dishes. Yeah.
I think that's the compromise we've all made. It's the one thing like Orwell got wrong in 1984, Bradbury and all these writers that were talking about like this dystopian future. What they didn't realize is we'd pay for this stuff. They didn't have to
Right.
force it on us like they did in the books. We'd be like,
Yeah.
here's my
So
money.
in a way, it's a bit scarier because,
Yeah.
well, is it though? Because I appreciate that we have the choice. It just
Hmm.
sucks that they were so good at just turning this into a science of how people will behave and just doing everything to, oh, I see a like, I need the just your brain giving you the chemicals that you need, and okay, now you're addicted and you're in the
Mm.
system. Need to my phone broke and need to pay for a new one. Now it's $200 more than last year. Sure, you need it.
Yeah. Well, there's a weird like feedback loop thing, the tail wagging the dog, I think is the expression, where you know, the algorithms, the data we picks up on our behavior and then gets tweaked and changed to react to us. And then we, as say, you know, content creators are now behaving in a way to go in line with the algorithms and the data because we want to fit into the search engines and optimize and all of these things. And it's this weird thing is happening
we're certainly changing our music to, well, to be fair, I don't know if we are changing our music to be algorithm friendly or the algorithms are just sort of a natural selection thing happening with the musics that are just
maybe,
short
yeah.
surviving. So, but I see your point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is like maybe we should have that hook in the beginning because, you know, people are only going to listen to the first 5 seconds if they don't like it. So we make creative choices because we found through the data that those songs get played more.
I'm sure you heard about the girl who got some pregnancy ad who didn't know she was pregnant. Turns out it was true.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't.
So the algorithms kind of sometimes know you better than you know yourself.
Oh, man. Sometimes I get worried about the kinds of things that show up in my feed. I'm like, oh, no. Almost like, hey, I don't want like someone to see that.
Right, yeah.
I wish I didn't look that up on the internet that night.
You have a button on Facebook now that like, why am I seeing this? And if you click on it, it says this and that company are targeting people in your city between the ages of, you know, and that could be it, or it could. I don't know if they're giving you the full page of what they know about you, because I've clicked it a couple of times and it's always like your age and gender and location. But they never, like, somehow sometimes it feels, but then why is it the thing I was talking about buying to my girlfriend or whatever, like exactly the same model, or could be a coincidence, but yeah, it happens a little bit too often.
Yeah, that is a little creepy. Hey, about the lyric videos, if we think of them as data, do you know if the videos are picking up on the text within the video, and does that and somehow maybe get incorporated into searches?
I don't know for a fact, but I've heard that if you have certain words that YouTube could, I don't think they would integrate them into searches. Like if you looked up the lyrics of a song, the song isn't going to come up just because the lyric video had the lyrics in there. But I think they could be using it to monitor for some problematic videos. Like they had some issues with violence or abuse, things like that could be flagged, but I don't think they would use it to search data. That's all I've heard.
I wonder if it needs to be in the description as text.
That, yes, if it's something in the description, then it will show up in the results.
Well, you can upload subtitles too, so I guess that would
you can also do.
I'm curious if they're able to scan the actual video for terminology, words.
I mean, all the signs are there because, first of all, the subtitles are auto-generated if you have that thing on. So we know they're analyzing audio. We know they're analyzing audio because they can detect if you use any copyrighted music. And
it's extremely effective too. I gotta say, it's amazing.
Yeah. But did you know that they have the same system in place for videos? Like if you take a popular video and upload it to your channel, or a film like Titanic or something, it would instantly get either removed or something. That's why a lot of there's this pirated full-length YouTube videos that usually manipulated somehow, and they seem to be. I surmise that YouTube is good at it because the ones that have manipulated it have shrunk it, stretched it, sped it up, slowed it down, pitched down the voice, and just like to make sure to cover all the angles that YouTube doesn't get, the video doesn't get deleted, and they still get it eventually.
Yeah.
So we know they're analyzing the audio, we know they're analyzing the video, all the ingredients are there. So
I've run into that at my job when I'm trying to show films to students, often like that deal with the books we're reading. And it's funny. Sometimes you come across these videos, like I want to show Of Mice and Men to my class, and it'll be the film of Mice and Men, but it'll be on a TV in a living room, you know, like that's the scene. And then there's this little TV in the living room. There's always this like, and you kind of realize like, I guess this is not the officially licensed way to do this.
yeah, not very legit.
Yeah. But it's interesting how so I guess you're right. I mean, they're obviously scanning the videos. I wonder if I'm sure, right? By now they're probably able to decipher the text.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I just don't know what they're using it for besides the problematic stuff.
I wonder if that's why the lyric videos might get more plays, even if people. I know that song is like something about, you know, they know a couple words and they type that in, and maybe, well, who knows? I'm making stuff up now, but
plausible.
You know, like a line in a song, you write it in, you might get the lyric video over the actual
because it
video.
always works. If you type a line in, it almost always the song comes up. Like there was a funny screenshot of if you type in "and I," and the I is just I to go and I, and the correct song comes up, even though "and I" is neither the name of the artist nor the title.
Yeah.
And you can try this, and it's hilarious.
That's funny.
Speaking of the copyright thing, have you had any issues with that, first of all? Because
I've had well, I guess what I get once in a while would be like sometimes in a class, if I do, and we play a part of a song, it might tell me I can't monetize that. I've never had any like, you know, this is like a strike, it's a negative thing on your account. But I have gotten things where it said, you know, like this has been demonetized.
Right.
And I actually had it happen on my own music because I guess it was uploaded probably via, maybe it was CD Baby back in the day or DistroKid, and you put your own song in the video to like demonstrate something, and then it comes back like you can't monetize that because your song is in this other video.
Yeah. But that's standard practice.
Yeah. At least you know it's working, I guess.
Yeah. And now if you're using CD Baby to release the music, and I assume the other ones have it too, they right before you opt into that, they like give you in big letters, just so you know, if you upload your music on YouTube, you're gonna you're gonna get a claim. That's totally normal. That's because we're collecting royalties on your behalf. I agree not to dispute the claim because they must be getting lots of, and you have to click I agree because they must be getting lots of people. Hey, this is my music. And
I've heard that from many people. Yeah, and they say I made a video for my song and it's being held captive by the streaming services, and I can't even use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in one way it tells you that they are protecting you.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
the
system's working. Everything's because I've had some. My music has also been uploaded a few times by other people, and they show up in my even in the YouTube channel, if you go and claim it as an artist, which I think everyone knows you should do, you can go claim your official artist channel on YouTube. Then even if someone else has uploaded it and it has your music in it, it shows up in your channel stats as views and revenue. And no, maybe not revenue because the revenue is being collected, but it shows up as views, engagement, and all those stats. So the system
cool.
works. Good to know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, like what was it, like a year or two ago? Like Dreams by Fleetwood Mac became like I think it like hit like on the top of the charts again because of just some viral videos, some TikTok videos. People were, I forget, like skateboarding or something, like, and that would play, riding bikes or something. Anyway, but it was like this like kind of wild thing that happened through all of that recognition and all that new streaming, because it just became this sort of trend to make these videos with that song playing.
Funnily, I made a lyric video for a cover of that song by, I think it was Sarah Evans. I think I'm getting that right. So, but obviously, I think her wasn't just a. I think she had the rights to it because I believe she's signed to a label. Anyhow, interesting example.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's cool stuff, and we're in an ever-changing landscape with all of it. So, yeah, I guess we got to just keep at it. You know, keep adding these skills to our toolbox as musicians and creators.
Yeah. Recently, Spotify canvases are a thing now, and I've been getting some interest in that.
What is that exactly? I've heard of these. I don't use Spotify myself, so.
Okay. So when you play some songs on Spotify now, you get this little 8-second or 7-second video that just loops. And usually it's either the artist, it can't be text, and it can't be some promotional buy the song or whatever. It's something, it has to be artistic extension of the music. They tell you this when you're uploading your canvas. And like a year ago, it was first launched. It was only available to the big artists, like the signed ones. But now, and not everyone is still aware of this, that it's available to everyone. If you go to your Spotify for Artists page and you go to the page of the specific track, you can add your own. There's an add canvas button, and you can add it. And in a few moments, it will show up and it will play. If somebody plays your song, it'll play along with it, this loop. And I often like to make them loop perfectly, like seamlessly, so you can't tell that it looped. So it's kind of cool. And there's a lot of things. Just another thing, like we were talking about, one more thing that you can do now to, according to Spotify stats, they have a whole website for it. I think it's canvas.spotify.com. And according to their own statistics, it's twice as likely to be saved. It's, I don't know how much more likely to be shared and liked and added to a playlist, and it increases the chances of all those things. So
wow,
if you have the capacity to do it, I think you should.
So just having a little looping video, almost like an animated GIF.
Yeah, it's exactly like a GIF, a little longer.
Yeah, that's cool. And, that's I guess it only makes sense, right? That because like you do get the album art when you play a track.
Yeah.
So and why not get a special little something?
And once again, most of the time, what I do is I get the album art, and I did one yesterday. It was a image of a girl in like a pop art style. So I just cut it out, and there was a sun in the background. I cut out the sun, and I like make the sun turn a little so that it turns right on time for the loop, and made the girl like had a reflection of the sun turning in her eyeglasses. It was very like just simple and stick to the same style. And just an extension of the artwork. It looks like
Hmm.
instead of just displaying a static artwork, now it's the artwork, but it's moving. Something's happening.
Hmm. I think it's those little touches too that might give the perception, to the listener, like, oh, this is for real, I mean, like, going back to when I first started making music, so much of it is like your perception. Like, you go to the show when you're a kid, you go to the show and you have t-shirts. You're like, oh my God, these guys are for real. And like, I can
Yeah.
remember we were seniors in high school, and we had a CD, and it was shrink wrapped, and it had art and on the CD, and like, it was like, wow, like, that was, I guess, like 97 and 98 maybe. And that was like uncommon at the time. Everyone had just like blank demo
Yeah.
tapes that they recorded, and we had them too. But when we had that, it just felt like, whoa, we're like on a new level now.
100%. I had a similar thing, just like getting your first CD, and like, okay, the very first ones, I had them homemade. I just printed it all,
Hmm.
and then I got this special type of CD that now this is just coming back to me now. You could print on there, but just in black and white.
Hmm.
So when anyone opened the case, there was also the an image and the name there, and it was, yeah, it's like you've ascended.
Yeah, it
But
wasn't
it
marker.
go, yeah, for sure, for sure. That feeling of seeing your CD the first time, it's
Yeah,
unforgettable.
it
It
is.
ties
Yeah.
into what you were saying, and there's so much noise and standing out. So at the time, everyone was doing tapes, and you had your CD, and you're like, okay, now we're at a different level.
Mm.
And now there's so much noise and so many avenues, like the music video, the lyric video, the canvas. So whatever you can do to get that 6 seconds of engagement or whatever will increase your chances to getting your music heard, I guess. Yeah, just one more thing to do.
It's pretty interesting that Spotify reports all of those like increases in your numbers just on having that video or that canvas playing.
Um,
That's wild.
they don't tell you for your own music. Well, they
Just the
tell you how
trend,
many
I guess.
plays. Yeah, they tell you how many plays the canvas views, because there, if you go to your Spotify for artists now, they have something called views, and I assume that means the canvas.
Hmm.
But the stats that I mentioned earlier, they have it on a separate page, and that's just to encourage artists to get canvases. And even though they say they don't promote ones that have canvases over others, just the fact that they have a whole page dedicated to it makes me kind of believe that it's a good idea to have it. Also, I heard that YouTube is making something similar now. I heard some big artists have some moving artworks, because if you release your music via the distribution like CD Baby or whatever, they also send a copy, or they also distribute it to YouTube in the form of just the artwork and music. And apparently that is now animated for some bigger artists.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure how they're doing that yet. They're probably
Interesting.
just testing out a new feature.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. So much to keep on top of. But
Yeah, for sure.
it's
For
fun.
sure.
As a music fan too, it's cool to just see these like new things coming and how
Yeah,
artists are
yeah,
going to use them.
yeah. I mean, I recently started, well, not recently, collecting records. Um, and I didn't know so much art comes with it nowadays,
Hmm.
at least. Because I
Yeah.
get some records from my favorite bands. Because I thought, what's a good way to promote it? Okay, I'll have a record, because it's I I started collecting records before I even had a turntable. So I had the records, but no means to play them. But sure enough, you open the box and there's like a letter and photos that the artist took, and they're all tie in together with the lyrics on there. And yeah, it's cool stuff. It's there's a lot in the package. No, just so much that the person who's only streaming doesn't see.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and at least now everyone knows what to get me for Christmas. No more socks and no more. Yeah, it's always records.
They force you into that immersive experience. I mean, for one, you have to be close by to flip the record, and just that massive piece of art that you can really go in and sit down and look at. Yeah, I love it. It's a lot of fun, and it takes you in deeper into that world we're talking about.
Yeah. Speaking of what you just described now, one of my biggest inspirations as a songwriter is Keaton Hanson, the English songwriter. He released this book, and it's just the weirdest thing. You plug a headphone to it, and some music plays that he wrote. And in the book, there's some photos that he took and some poetry that he wrote, and it just like all works together. That's a new format, and it's physical, and I've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
And I was like one of the first 50 to order it, so I got the autographed version.
Oh, cool. I'll have to look into that. I never heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
A book you plug into.
Yeah, a book, and you plug into a headphone. It has a battery slot. It came with a battery, but in case it runs out, you could just like replace the battery. But interesting new format.
Yeah, it is. Who knows what's next, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, lyric videos are like, when I started making them, I thought, okay, this is a trend, and a few years and it'll be out. But now they're just still going. So,
well, I think that probably has a lot of legs because people want to know the lyrics. They want to see what the songs are. Maybe they want to sing along with them, or I see so many
YouTube's
people
not going away.
Yeah, it's like so many people just use YouTube to play music. That's people use it as their like main music player. So it's a great way to make sure your tracks are even on there, first of all. But
for sure,
that little bit of interaction, like you know, the album artwork, like they distribute, like you were saying, where it's just kind of the cover of the album and the song plays. It's nice that it's there. But that's where the interaction ends.
Yeah, you don't sit and look at it very long.
Yeah, you got something to pay attention to.
And regarding YouTube, I don't know if you have the same experience, but when I use one of those landing pages to promote a release, I find that because you know the ones that have YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and the
like the tree, link tree type of thing.
Link tree. I use feature whatever. Yeah. YouTube always gets the most clicks for me. So YouTube is being used. Like, people shouldn't underestimate it as a music platform. And Amazon gets some too, weirdly, because you only hear artists focusing on Spotify, but yeah, it's there.
And well, it's included with a lot of like I believe like there's a Prime level that you can get the Amazon Music.
Yeah.
I think anyway. I know I get emails telling me I'm missing out on Amazon Prime.
I don't know how it is in the US, but in the one here in Spain, if I have just the Prime for getting my products, I also get to watch a large collection of the videos and films that come with it, but not the music. And some of the films I'd have to pay for, but so there is a package, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have a higher tier where you also get the music with it.
Yeah, I think I have something similar where they do have a lot of video content. I think, because I get like emails telling me like you're missing out on your Amazon Music. So,
right.
Maybe I'll have to look into that.
Yeah. As a concept, before I forget, because we were saying earlier, lyric videos, how far back did they go? The oldest one I know is Bob Dylan, because I don't know if this counts as a lyric video, but he has a music video where he's just standing there and holding a plaque. The name of the song escapes me right now, but he's holding a plaque with the lyrics of the song, and he just changes the plaque as the song goes. So that could be the first lyric video.
That's a cool concept for one. It's relatively simple to do, and
I think anyone with a phone and just some paper and can replicate that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Just coming up with those creative ideas.
Yeah, for one of my own songs, I just filmed myself lip syncing to my own song and then put the lyrics next to it, free.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a huge production, but it's people, they get the lyrics and the face. So not that not that I have the most amazing face, but it's just human psychology. When people see a face, they just stick around. They like to see the artist. Another data that I saw recently was on Reddit on what happens to artists posting their art, like actual artwork, with and without them standing next to it. And when the artist is standing next to the artwork, it always goes has way more upvotes than when it's just a blank picture of the art. People just like to see the artist.
I believe that. I mean, I think even if somebody's showing you pictures of their vacation, you know, they might be, here's the Grand Canyon, here's the Eiffel Tower, and what you wind up just looking at the people in the pictures anyway. Even though they're the ones that just the scenery, you're like, okay, that's looks really nice. Who's that?
I could have Googled that.
Who's this guy? You know, who's this in this picture?
Yeah, especially if they just post a beach or whatever. I mean, I could have Googled that and gotten a 4K picture of where you were. But if you show me that you're there with your family or friends or whatever, then I see that. Yeah.
That's a good point. If it's something you can just Google and get a better representation, a professional, right? Yeah, then maybe that's not worth doing. But I like what you've done, and the point too. It's free, and it's not hard. That wouldn't be a hard one to do. Just we get all. I know I do, and we get like kind of psyched out. Well, I'm gonna need a better camera. I'm gonna need a microphone.
Right.
You know, like I can't do this until I have that. But even our most basic things that everyone tends to have, are so vastly superior than the basic ones we used to have that they can cut it.
For sure. I mean, if I think about the first phone I had with a camera, I couldn't have shot anything on it that I could publish. But I think, I didn't use my phone. I used a camera, not a super good one. But if I were to not have that, I think I could achieve similar result with just a phone. And, it gets you at least 50 to 60% of the way there. And I guess the part that it came free for me was adding the text into it, because I like to be a little specific on how the words appear and how they are timed. But I think anyone could just learn a free editing software and just add it as sentences, maybe like not exactly like subtitles, maybe in a little more stylistic. Then I think it can be done for free, and a cool way to promote music.
Yeah, and otherwise you have nothing there, and that's the alternative.
Exactly, or just the artwork.
I talk about that a lot in sampling field recordings. Like, it'd be great if you had the $600 Zoom, whatever, or some great $2,500 backpack with a microphone with like elephant fur. Elephants don't have fur, but just a great huge boom stand and windscreens and stuff like that. Sure, that'd be great. But the sound is here. You don't have any of that stuff on you, but you do have a phone that can take a pretty decent recording of it, and you can get it, or you can wish you had it. So
Yeah.
might as well do it.
Yeah. It also extends into plugins. I don't know what's up with people. Like, which 40 plugins should I get so I become famous with my music? What? I I mean, I am a bit on the other end of this in terms of I can't even understand what, and you will probably, when what people mean when they say this compressor sounds better than this compressor or this EQ sounds better than this EQ. It baffles me because I know what an EQ does and what a compressor does, and I hear the difference when they're on and off and when you change the parameters. But to prefer one over the other is where I get lost. And why people would pay money to get a better EQ. It's just you can do so much with what comes with the DAW.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there's definitely differences in how they respond and the character. Like, I think that's a lot of it sometimes is actually in the flaws almost, like, and how it colors the sound
Yeah.
compared to something that might be more transparent. It depends what you want, I guess. But the point that you're making, I understand in that if you have a compressor, if you have an EQ, you've got 90% of what you need, and you can get the job done with
For sure.
with any DAW's stock devices.
Yeah.
I like to tell the story of when I first got a computer to start making music on, and my first like big project was like trying to download every plugin I could find, cracking software from the dark alleys of the internet, and I had all this stuff that was supposed to be good, and I didn't know how to use any of it, and I wasn't making any music at all. And it wasn't until I kind of realized that, and I just got rid of it all, and I had just started with Ableton Live. I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to use all of this stuff that comes with it first, and then I'll figure out what I need. And I learned pretty quickly, like, wow, if I know what I'm doing in here, I know how to make some chains of effects and put things together. I actually don't need to buy any of this stuff, or a lot of it anyway.
Right.
I mean, I love plugins, of course. You know, I love trying out new effects and things. And sometimes it's just the interface is nice, and sometimes it's just the feel of it, the way you can dial things in quickly. But I think it's all extra. You know, it's all you still have most of what you need, and you can get really close. And to fool yourself into thinking like you're not going to be able to do it until you get that stuff is a huge mistake, because just having even the light version of any of these programs sets you on a level so far beyond what we had just a few decades ago.
Yeah. Also, some people I'm sure you also have had this. People ask, which DAW should I use? Which one is the best one? Like, just use, if you're already using one. I also use Ableton, by the way. But
that's the best.
If somebody's, huh? Yeah, there's your answer. Case closed. Podcast over. But I always say, if you already know one and you're using it, why change? There's, like, in my opinion, zero qualitative difference in changing. And then you're going to spend another, I don't know how many years you spent on one, but you're going to spend the same amount of time to become adept at this one, to know where every little thing is. I know when I'm learning a new program, sometimes I'm like, okay, I want to do this one quick effect, but now I'm using this program. So, okay, let me open Google, how to do this one little effect. Open the first 3 results. This is from a different version. This is from a different program. This one doesn't have any answers on it, but it's a question. It's a person asking the exact same question as me, but doesn't have any answers on it. And it's just end up spending 40 minutes on something I know I could have done in 5 seconds in the software that I'm familiar with. So that's my answer to that.
I think the best one is the one you know. The one you know
exactly.
how to use. You know, the tools you know how to use are the best ones. They all get you to the same place, mostly a little bit of a different direction, a little different scenery along the way. But there, especially nowadays, I mean, even like some of the features, like I love live session view, you're starting to see that crop up in Logic, and Digital Performer has it too. So I just think that it's what you know. It's if you know how to use the tool, use whatever, just whatever you're most comfortable with. And you make a great point. Like you then have to relearn something. And sometimes
Yeah.
I know I've done this myself where when I was still trying out all different DAWs, a lot of it was just avoidance. It was like, because making music, making art, creating something is scary. It's stressful, and it's a lot less stressful. It's a lot less scary to just try to download a new program and see how that one works.
Okay, yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
guilty of this. And oh, this keyboard is it doesn't have all the keys that I want on it. I need a bigger one, and then I can really start writing my song. And
Then you'll make your hits.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that
That's what's missing.
49 keyboard isn't gonna, you'll never make it. You need at least 88. You probably need
Yeah,
like at least a few tiers.
and they need to be weight sensitive, and
Of
they need to have
course.
some MIDI buttons on there so you could stop and start the effects as you're recording. Otherwise, it doesn't have the same flow to it, and
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, oh, you can convince yourself of that forever. And I've done it a million times. I don't know how many times
Same.
once I get that, then the hits are gonna
Yeah.
start rolling in, and I'll have it easy. It's it's a
Same.
it's a
Same.
trick we play on ourselves. It's resistance, as Stephen Pressfield discusses in the War of Art. If you've ever read that, it's a great book. I always talk about it. This idea of resistance. It's the force that prevents us from doing our creative work, and sometimes it's really deceptive. I'm learning something. I'm learning a new software. It feels
Right.
productive, but a lot of
Right.
times you're kidding yourself, and you're just avoiding the grunt work, because it does take just
Yeah.
rolling up your sleeves and getting in there and getting to work. And that's not always so exciting to do. It's scary. It's daunting. It's, you know,
Right. I know what you mean. It's a battle every time I decide to actually sit down and record something, especially if it's a song that I'm just working on. And I know I've worked with enough music to know, and I'm not trying to be modest, that I'm not the best at any of the instruments I play, but I just know it well enough so that I can take the guitar or the keyboard and just practice this one little part enough times so that when I hit record, I will hopefully eventually get it right. So even if you don't, even if you aren't the best at playing your instrument, you have the tools thanks to multi-track recording to just have infinite takes and eventually get there and sound like it. And through time, you can become good enough to play it on stage. I think
hmm
that's possible. I think that's one way to do it. Like,
oh yeah.
so not just the software or the hardware, but also your own skills can trick you into thinking that you shouldn't even try something.
hmm That's really true. I've definitely cobbled together musical performances through punching in or takes and comping, and then had to learn it, and then, you know, after some practice you can actually do it. But
Yeah. I often go back and re-record those parts as well.
mhm.
Like, okay, I have this idea, I don't want to lose it. I'll just record it. Okay, it's not perfect after 2 hours. I'll leave that for now and I'll develop the song and go back to it days later. I'm like, okay, now that I've had some practice with it, I believe I can do a better performance, and
Mhm.
then hopefully actually do that. Because
Yeah.
That doesn't always work. Sometimes it's like, why did I delete that? It was perfect the way it was. Now I've ruined it forever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of it too, you know. Well, it's hard, it's a struggle, and it's a challenge, and that's why I think it's so easy to get caught up in easy fixes or thinking you need the new thing. I mean, this is why like there's multi-billion-dollar like weight loss industries. I mean, it's when you break it down, like fitness and health it's pretty simple. It's you eat well and exercise is what it boils down to. But that's hard.
Right.
It's hard.
Yeah. Right.
I had an ice cream with cookie cake dessert at a restaurant last night, and like I knew I shouldn't have, but I loved it. It was great, and I kind of feel it a little bit today. I'm like, whoa, like I had something that's dragging me down today, but it's like you just have to work at it. You just have to put in the time and the energy, and that's the same thing with making music. You just have to buckle down, and you're going to be faced with all of your limitations, like, oh man, I'm not really that good at that. I can't quite get what I wish I saw this person do something like this in one take and it sounded amazing. And
Yeah.
you have to face like all that self-doubt, and the inner critic is there with you full time.
You have to remember how many times they did it in their lifetime that they couldn't do in one take, so that they could now. But have you heard this tip? Write something, or if in music's case, even record something that you just never release. Just with that mindset, just write something and record it, and then delete it. Just as a practice, even so that you're comfortable with making garbage, like just to get the flow. I thought that sounded good. I've never done it. I'm like a bit too self-centered to just be like, what if it's really good? Then I wanna,
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you need to delete it necessarily, but to just be okay with making bad music, I think is really important. Like, be okay with making bad music, because for one, it takes you through the whole process. So if you just follow through on a song, even though you know it's terrible, and embrace that. This song is so bad, laugh at it, have fun. Who cares? But at least you're getting the reps in, You're getting it's like, I don't know, like if you're running a mile and you're really dragging that last quarter mile or something, at least you're doing it. You're practicing it. And it's not pretty, but so what? You at least did it. And I think that's the same with making bad music. And I also think that it gives you a more open mind, and sometimes you stumble across things that you wouldn't do because you're trying to be a serious artist, and you realize like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. I kind of like that. There's something good here.
I think it's appropriate that the word for music is playing, because there needs to be some playfulness to it. So you could, as you said, just be funny about it when it's bad, because you're gonna have to make bad music before you get to your piece de resistance or whatever.
Right. I always read Seth Godin's blog. I think it might just be like Seth.com or Seth. He always says like, just type Seth into Google and he comes right up, which is pretty cool.
Really? That's cool.
Oh yeah. Well, being a famous author will do that for you. But he writes a blog every single day for years, maybe even decades now. Every day he just posts something. And so I always like to see what he has to say. And today was something like, there's no such thing as writer's block. There's just fear of bad writing. So it's not like you can't fill the page. You're afraid it's not good. It's not like you can't make a song. Right. You're just afraid it's not good. So you're getting stuck. You're like, I don't like this. I don't think that sounds good.
That makes sense. If I think back to every time I just got stuck on something, it's because I knew that when I hit record, what's going to come out of my face or my instrument, it's going to be bad. And I would just like, no, I need to think about this. No, I need to uh, practice it or develop it further before I actually. Yeah, that makes sense. I see that. Like
Yeah.
reflecting backwards and
I've heard him say too, maybe on his podcast or maybe in his book or something, but if you think you have writer's block, well, show me your bad writing. And like usually the problem is there is no bad writing. And you just gotta, I don't know if it's that you have to get through it, like you have to write 100 bad songs before you write a good one. I don't know if it's necessarily that, but I do think you have to be willing to just be okay with it and let it happen. And if it turns out bad, so what? Just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. And yeah, I get stuck when I'm like thinking like I'm not being clever enough or I'm not playing well enough or my ideas aren't cool enough or witty enough or something like that. I get stuck. But if I'm just like, oh, well, I guess I'm making this song about, hamburger buns.
right.
And you just do it for the hell of it. There's a lot of freedom in that, actually, because you're not worrying about like all that artist stuff. And I've done a few projects where it wasn't about that, and there was some other purpose to the music, and I found that pretty freeing because it was like, well, I don't have to be an interesting artist for this. I just need to do something that fits this particular job, and
right.
You basically just put all of your skills to work, your songwriting, what you know about that, what you know about production, and you're just practicing that without the fear of being artistic enough,
Right. Because people say quality over quantity, but quantity eventually makes quality if you just do it enough. You get there. And I'm guilty of this as well. Like I tend to release one song per year or something. I tell myself it's because I've been too busy, but no, it's because I'm just afraid of writing something bad that I might be ashamed of later or whatever. I'm like, no, it needs to be perfect. Every line has to be there. And sure, I could just write stuff and not release it. And yeah, like you said, it doesn't have to be deleted, but maybe I should heed my own advice from earlier and just like record stuff and not release it, just to try to actively get better at it.
Yeah, just for the sake of doing it. Yeah. And you get in the habit, like you know what to do. And then when you do have a good idea, you know how to finish a song. You know how to get through it.
Yeah.
You're not like...
Just fade it out.
Well, you're not like suddenly now you have to figure out how to make this good because I've never made anything good. I've never even made my bad songs good. And now I've got a good one. And you're probably going to make it bad because you've never made one good, if you know what I mean.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you lose the thrill a little bit of like, this is coming out so awesome and you're excited. But I'm often surprised at how, if you do follow through on things, it's almost like your personal taste pulls you through a little bit and you kind of find a way to make it good. There's this song I'm recording with my band right now, and one of the members was like really into the song, and I was having just a hard time like seeing it, like I don't really get that. I wasn't sure what to play. I didn't have lyrics, and I just wasn't seeing the song, and therefore I wasn't feeling it. I was trying and I was working on it, but I just couldn't. But we kept going on it, and finally got some of those big pieces into place. And now it's like, you know what? I'm starting to enjoy this now. And it's because like your taste comes through. Like it's like a guide, I guess, like you're only going to make so many bad decisions and eventually you'll make a couple good ones, and those will start to come through over time. sometimes you get lucky like that, and sometimes you don't, and it just doesn't work. But at least you did it. At least you got it out of the way.
Yeah. Sometimes there's also something in your head that you're expecting, and when what you're hearing isn't exactly that, it takes a few listens for it to get there. And this happens when so I work with a drummer, and when I record stuff, sometimes I put some looping drum just so I know, like, here there's going to be some drums come in and get louder. But when I send him, I want his full artistic input on it. So I just remove everything and I'd be like, do whatever you want. And he'll record something and send it back to me. And obviously it's going to be totally different than what I've been hearing for a week. And always, the first time I'm hearing it, I'm like, I don't know if I like it. It's like, I don't dislike it, but it's different than just so. I'm like, give me 3 days. So I spent 3 days listening to it, and then somewhere I'll have the loop version saved, and I'll go back to it. I'm like, this is clearly way better because a professional drummer actually wrote something specifically for the piece, and what was in my head was keeping me from liking my own song, just with a different drummer's, with an actual drummer's input on it.
Right. It's almost like when you get like a drastic new haircut and you like kind of look at yourself in the mirror for a couple of days and like, who's this weirdo?
Yeah.
Maybe you can go, if you shave your beard, say, right? Like, and you probably look at yourself for like, I don't know how long you've had your beard, but then you look for yourself for the first time for a while and you're like, this is weird. Like, I don't know if I like it. And then a couple of days later, you're like, you know what? I look good. I like this hairstyle. Like it actually works. It's or maybe not, but I know what you mean. There's this like you get comfortable with the demo-itis, I think people call it, where like you just can't make it. You can't like unhear what you had. It can be dangerous to listen to something too many times, and then you just like it the way it is, even if it's not as good as it could be.
A similar concept apparently exists in film, and apparently it has a name that right now escapes me, and it's something syndrome. So what happens is, apparently when the directors are making the video editor is doing the cut or something, they use a placeholder music to show the director. And when the actual composer produces something specifically for the film, and the director sees that it's different than what they've been hearing, they were like, no, make something more similar to this. And apparently this is causing a lot of films to have less and less original soundtracks compared to maybe 30, 40 years ago, when there were these epic soundtracks. Like you hear the Darth Vader theme, you know what's going to happen.
I've heard about that, where in film that can be like problematic because you're like, oh man, I missed that song. Like, where did it go? I think we get that with our music, absolutely. It's hard to like let go of something when you get familiar with it. And I've heard of like people, like if they're sending, I know, like I'm sending out like demos of our songs to the other band members, and sometimes I'm like, don't get attached to this. I didn't mix it yet. It's just so you can hear, and I almost don't want to send it sometimes because I don't want you to get too attached to it. So I've heard of people like purposely giving like their clients like a bad mix, just so like they'll know like it's not supposed to sound like this. It's going to sound different.
Right.
Because it is like a thing, like it happens to me too, in my own work, where if I listen to something too many times, like I just can't get around it. I can't hear it different unless I really take a break.
Right. sometimes when I'm making videos, and I always do demos to the clients for them to approve. Sometimes when I'm doing the demo, I don't put everything in there. I just like give the basic idea, just because I want them to, when they see the full thing, to just for it to be better than what they
Right.
saw.
Little
Like
pop. Yeah.
measurably better.
Yeah, yeah, right. Because you don't want to give them the final thing. They'd be like, how's this any different? It looks just like the
Yeah,
demo. It sounds the same to me. Looks the same to me. Yeah, I thought you
makes
mixed
sense.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, there's a weird psychological thing. Our brains, they do favor the stuff we're familiar with. That's why we like a song the third time we hear it and not the first time a
right,
lot of the
right. It
times.
gets stuck.
Hmm.
Also, when when I'm working on mastering songs, I obviously always advise the artist to leave at least 6 dB of headroom, so for the mastering process, but not everyone does that. And I'm fairly transparent in my mastering, so unless there's a problematic sound, I don't just go crazy with the EQ or whatever. So when they already have mixed it very loudly, and then I send them a master that's just a little bit more balanced, a little bit louder. They're like, "Did you do anything?" But yeah, you should leave 6 dB of headroom, and that would
Hmm.
be best practice.
Yeah. Well, there's not so much you can do when you don't have that. Then you're kind
Exactly,
of, you've already been like pushed into the corner and there's
exactly.
nowhere to move. Hmm. Well, they could always, inverse the phase and play them together and then hear the actual difference, I guess, right?
Ah, yeah.
That can be your way of proving it to them. Oh, look, if it was the same file, it would cancel it out.
Yeah. It's not something that has happened that many times for me to have a process in place.
Right, right. Yeah, but I know what you mean because it is a really subtle art in mastering, and sometimes, you know, if you're not really listening and not really comparing, you might be like, I don't even know.
Yeah. I don't expect the mastering to significantly change the sound signature or something.
Hmm.
It's like I'm fairly transparent with it. A good advice I've read is record like there won't be mixing, mix like there won't be mastering.
Hmm.
And I think that's a good place
Yeah,
to, like, if you send me something that's a mess, there's only so much polishing I'm going to be able to do with that.
yeah, yeah. And if you have none of that headroom, you can't really do much. It's hard for you to like even EQ things. Um, I like the first part too. Record like they're not gonna mix it because I think a lot of mixing happens in the arrangement. If you have instruments and sounds that work well together, then you don't have to do as much mixing. They fit together well. If
Yeah.
everything's competing, then that's when you got to really get in there and start like, all right, cut out these
Right.
frequencies and move this around.
Yeah. Most of the mixing I do is just EQ, compression, and some reverb. I try not to go crazy with stuff. But I think also in that first part to record, like there's not going to be any mixing, is when you're recording a take and then you listen to it and it's like, okay, the microphone placement isn't perfect, but we'll fix that in the mix. No, just sort out the microphone and do another take. You're going to have much better time in the mixing process.
Hmm. Yeah, get it right. Yeah, that's obviously there's I guess exceptions to this, but I think that's a bad habit to get into. Like, we'll fix it later. We'll fix it later. We'll fix it later.
Yeah.
Some things that, you know, if it's the if you have 7 vocal takes and you've got that one
Okay.
word right, okay, fine, let's just comp it together. We can fix that.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, if it's like, oh, who cares that that crazy buzz is going on? We'll just fix that in the mix. It's like, no,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
gonna, yeah, there's only so
Okay,
much magic you can do in the studio.
exactly.
There's a lot of magic you can do, but yeah,
For sure. It's
if
impressive how much you can do just by using pitch and amplitude to sound. It's there, like the whole field of psychoacoustics is fascinating to me. It's
yeah,
when I first saw, um, I don't know what video was this, of some artists creating the human voice sounds with a synthesizer, or like similar sounding. Like if you want to make an O, you use these frequencies, and if you want to make an S, you use these frequencies, and combining them, you could make it sound like a human voice. Was mind blown. How can you just um, craft that?
yeah, by tapping into those resonant frequencies. It's pretty interesting when you think about it. I mean, if you look at like the frequency spectrum, there's only so much room in there. You got your bass to our highest level
Yeah,
of hearing, but every single sound in the world is just some combination of those frequencies put together.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, and you can synthesize quite a lot, but there's other things that are just so complex that there's no other way to do it but then to just record it. And
of course.
the it's not just which frequencies are happening, it's how much over time and how they're changing and interacting. So it's so complex, but in a way so simple at the same time.
Yeah, because the ingredients are just, I guess, pitch, amplitude, and time. So you can make plosives, and obviously it won't sound like a human voice, or because everything we hear is in the space, and there's the sounds that's bouncing and sound that's coming to your skull and all that. But yeah, like the ingredients to just craft sound. If you pull up an EQ and just look at your music, it's crazy how we're perceiving all these different sounds from basically three things.
Yeah. That's something I actually loved doing. Is listening to music and just watching, running it through like my
Yeah.
EQ or my spectrum, and just looking at it and like being like, wow, like look at how this is happening here, and this thing's doing that, and look at where that snare drum keeps popping up right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's very educational and it's helpful when you're mixing. I mean, using like a reference track is kind of like that, I guess, but even without the context of mixing, you're not like mixing, you're just listening and looking. I enjoy that a lot, just to see like, wow, look what's happening in this song that I think sounds great. It just gives you a lot of perspective. Like, wow, I never noticed how much, low end or mids are going on here. And look at how like little the vocal affects or how much it affects the movement and the whole spectrum.
right. I, I especially like it when there's a problem frequency and you can see it super clearly and can treat it there. It's so much easier than just trying to guess where it's coming from. But unfortunately, it's not always that simple.
No, unfortunately not. But
some,
you can
some,
watch your music. You should always listen with your ears, but sometimes you can listen with your eyes a little. And I would never tell anyone not to do either. But
right.
that's another tool that it can be very
Yeah, why
helpful.
wouldn't you? Yeah. And what I find helpful in, have you used Ozone for mastering?
Mm-hmm.
I like that they have this. You select the genre of music, and they have this rough range of where should the average sound signature be as you play it, and then you can, without listening to 20 different songs of the same genre, get some kind of a starting point. If there's, okay, this song is way too low and heavy for this genre, you can like immediately see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that quite useful when
Yeah.
I'm mastering.
You get like the kind of trends, the general. I found that stuff really interesting, especially like when I first started playing around with more electronic sounds, and thinking about that compared to like rock band music that I was coming from, like things like the bass and the kick. In so much electronic music, it's so much heavier, and learning things about like a bass guitar with its low E string, you're roughly around 40 hertz. And then everything below that is just sub frequencies. That's not even really a note on the bass. A lot of times you can cut that out. You don't need it. But in electronic music, those subs can be really useful and effective. But you also sort of have to decide like who's getting at the kick or the bass. And there's still all this room
Right.
making,
Yeah.
but it's a much different type of mix. You know, like you just wouldn't put that kind of low end into like rock band as you would like on a dance floor, you know, techno
Right.
type of thing where that is
Yeah.
such a big component to the music, that thump and
Right.
that
And
feeling.
even if you can't hear some of those low frequencies, and when there's a big enough space where it's being played, you could feel the vibrations, and apparently that appeals to some people. So
Mm,
I no longer cut out the super low end if it's that type of music.
yeah. Yeah, it's part of the point of it, right? Like, well, music, I heard this description and I loved it. It's like, it is actually, well, sound is really like a sense of touch, because these vibrations, it's air moving and it's coming up to your ear and it's touching the little tiny hair follicles and in there. It's touch, it's moving things. And I mean, when you crank up music real loud and you feel it in your body, like that's like a visceral feeling. You're feeling it in your body. I can remember like first time I ever went to a concert, you know, and like feeling like those drums and being like, oh my God, you know,
Yeah, that's
like it's
different.
touching you. It's going like through your body. So it's part of the experience. You know, that's why I think like, you know, like playing in a band or playing like in a loud sound system, it's just so thrilling because
For
there's that
sure. For sure.
physical energy of it. You just gotta
Yeah.
be careful with your ears.
You're right. It does when I'm at a concert and I feel the vibrations. Somehow a music that already affects me emotionally somehow affects me more when I feel it through my chest, like
Yeah,
literally.
physically moving you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Do you mono the low end?
I do sometimes.
Okay.
I generally mix things that have a lot of low end in, you know, right up the middle. And Ableton's utility now has that like mono that I've found does clean things up sometimes in like the kicks and the bass.
Hmm.
Do you
I
do that?
was reading a debate, so I thought I'd
Yeah.
ask.
Well, I guess like those long frequencies they can go in and out of phase, much more noticeably.
Yeah.
Is that something you like to do, like on mastering even, or?
I do on my own songs when I have no in the mixing. I do
Hmm.
that in the mixing stage, and on the mastering it would depend if I'm hearing any issues. Wait, did I say that the correct way around? Well, no, my kick is always mono. I don't use electronic sounds for that. So, but in the mastering stage, if I try both. Sometimes I mono the low end. In Ozone, there's the spatial imager tool, and I cut down, if not completely mono, I cut down on the width of the low end and raise it on the high end a bit just to give it a little more sizzle headspace.
How low do you generally go when you're going mono like that?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Kind of depends.
I don't have a magic number.
Yeah. What's the answer?
Yeah. Which frequencies
There's never a magic
do I boost?
number, right?
Yeah. I start with the preset and then just move it around where I see. Like I try to, because that tool has these 4 bars that you divide the music into 4 different frequency ranges, and there's some overlap. But I try to see where, for example, the kick is living and the bass is living, and then I set that to one thing. Then I move that way, and until I rely on maybe sight and sound for that than just punching in numbers.
I sometimes like to mix in mono altogether. Just put the whole master channel utility, put mono.
I do that. That. Yeah, I've heard that tip and I've tried it. Yeah.
It's hard for me to do, like, discipline wise, because you just want to like hear it in stereo and be like, wow. But if you can get it sounding pretty good in mono, then when you take it off and go into stereo, you have all this extra room to move things around. And of course, like when you're in mono, you're gonna notice if there's any sort of phasing issues, if things are not canceling each other out or whatever. Whereas if you're mixing in stereo, you can kind of just like, well, that's not working, but if I stick it over here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I stick the utility on the master bus and just hit the mono and mix like that for a while, and then get rid of it once I'm ready to move to the panning stage. And I think it's good practice.
Yeah, I think it is. I find it challenging because I just want to move things right away. Like I'm always thinking like, where is everything in this mix?
I find it challenging to keep myself from starting to mix while I'm still recording. Like, okay, I have this idea for a song. I record the guitar. I record the keyboard. I'm like, let me just add some high to that guitar and let me see how it sounds to the reverb. But I'm not even like, I need to do more. But I can't help it sometimes. It's just like these two can sound better together.
Do you think that's a problem?
Well, if it's keeping me from recording more, which we've already agreed is kind of challenging sometimes.
Yeah.
Then I'm just using it as an excuse to do something else than, let's say, sing or the next step. Yeah. But otherwise, I don't know. Like a lot of what I do, I end up changing anyway. So.
Well, like, if we go back to the root of all of recording music, there was the recording phase, the engineer, and then there was the mixing phase, and then the mastering. But now it's so often like just one person doing everything. So, is there harm in mixing as you go and making things fit? And because then you can kind of gauge what needs to happen next based on those choices, instead of just saying, we'll make it fit later. But on the other hand, you bring up a good point that if you start like just EQing your kick drum and compressing the snare because you really don't know what to do next, that's also a type of avoidance.
Yeah. Because, it's going to depend, because sometimes I have, all the main instruments are in, Now I'm thinking okay, I need a little bit more excitement in this chorus here. What should I do? And sometimes I'll decide, okay, maybe a new instrument could fit in here. But if I have tricked myself into a good sound via, I don't know, some saturation plugin, then it might be detrimental. I'm not sure which is best. I guess they both have their merits.
Yeah, it's probably one of those rules that are, don't really need to be rules. Because I can see the merit in both. It doesn't often make a lot of sense to really go too nuts on mixing when you know you're going to be adding a lot of stuff anyway, and you got to make it work and fit. So why go crazy getting the drums sounding perfect here when I'm never going to hear them alone anyway? So I need to hear what they're going to sound like in context with the other instruments. But on the other hand, I can see how, you're kind of arranging too. A lot of times I'm writing as I'm recording, and the next instrument I choose to put in often depends on where there's room. And I don't know, like you said, maybe if I put that crazy saturator on something, it fills out a space I no longer need to fill out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a wrong answer in any of this. And thankfully, every expert I've heard talk about this, every tutorial I've watched, mentioned that, okay, don't be afraid to just break every rule that I just mentioned and try stuff out and see how it sounds. And I think that's important to do.
Yeah, nothing works all the time, and sometimes the wrong thing is right. And I kind of do, I guess, mix a lot as I go, but I try to keep in mind, when I'm avoiding, like you said, and when I'm getting off track, especially if I'm like recording with other people and I know I don't have them here all the time and it's precious. Right. Sometimes I'll catch myself thinking, all right, I'm not, I'll do that later when you're not here. Let's keep moving forward. You got to kind of realize when you're sort of kidding yourself a little. You're just trying not to do the work.
Yeah, that comes with time. Yeah. If I was younger, I'd have been like, no, I'm totally doing legit work here. This is gonna make the whole process better. But nowadays, I'd be like, nah, it's time to move on with the song. It's just
nice. Well, you can EQ that snare all you want in isolation, but then when you start putting the other stuff in, you might have to do it all over.
Why are snares a nightmare to EQ? It's like,
there's a lot of energy in there. There's low end, there's high end, there's stuff in the middle, and often snares have those like really big resonant frequencies, and they're a short sound usually. They come in instantly. Right. They're complex, and they're these little bursts throughout the whole song, usually.
I don't know how many days I've spent EQing something and be like, okay, that snare sounds good, and come back 3 days later and what was I thinking? This is a mess. And it's clearly just wrong. Start over. And it's worse when you just turn off all the processing you've done and it sounds better raw. And then you're like, okay, I'm taking a break from this song for like
that happens
a week.
All the time, yeah. I've had that feeling many times. It's humbling.
Good to know. Good to know that it still happens.
Oh yeah, it does. I mean, I don't know. You lose sight of things, and you adjust. Everything's weird. Like you're adjusting to the sound of the speakers. You're getting numb to frequencies. You're losing context with everything. It's like this constant, when you're working, you're constantly like losing your connection with reality, and your ears are
Right.
changing and getting used to things, and your room is a factor, and the speaker, everything is, there's so many elements. I find sometimes the best thing I can do is just like get out of the room for a few minutes.
Yeah. It's difficult to do, but yeah.
Yeah, like you just gotta walk around, go outside, and come back.
Sometimes I like to put on a different song while I do that, just to flush my head and ears.
Recalibrate.
Yeah. I also find that when I don't do that, I tend to focus on the very last thing I added or changed. Whereas when I leave and come back an hour or maybe a day later, I can absorb the entire production and not just the last thing I did. And that helps.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you're so tuned into that. Yep, that happens all the time. We were just doing background vocals recently, and that's all you're listening to. And then you come back and you're like, oh, okay, they actually do fit. Maybe we have them too loud, or just something silly, or some little thing. But yeah, it's just what you're tuned into, I guess. And you never get to hear it for the first time fresh with new ears. You're always building on it.
That's true. I always wonder what it must be like for somebody listening to something I produced for the first time. Yeah, I've never thought about it. I never get to experience my music.
No, that's the price.
For the first time.
Unless, sometimes you don't listen to something for a long time, you almost forget about it. Sometimes you get that, but usually there's just too much time put in.
I guess this is why, what you said is why I've subconsciously gotten into the practice of not listening to my music from the moment I hit submit to the moment it comes out. And then I listen to it on Spotify or whatever when it comes out, so that I'm like getting some kind of a
little break.
Because by the time I hit submit, I'm kind of so used to every single sound in there that when I don't listen to it until it comes out, I get a little bit of that first experience feeling, and hopefully I still like the song.
Yeah. I know what you mean. We just get so attached to it. Yeah, I think if you can afford it, like taking a week off can be really helpful. Just not move on to something else, do something different for that week or whatever, and then come back and just have a little more perspective. You get more of the big picture instead of like, I was really working on that one rhythm guitar yesterday, and let's hear it today.
And perhaps you find that it wasn't worth maybe spending that much time and energy over. Sometimes I must have gone through every single guitar rig preset to just, why don't I get that guitar sound to just know? And then after a break, I'm like, what am I talking about? It sounds totally fine. It just, it could go either way though.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, you're like, we did the same thing recently with bass recording with amplitude. There's whatever you want, basically, right? And there was like one song we just didn't do anything to. We just we just opened it up, and that we just recorded and never touched it, and been adding to it, mixing to it, and listened back to it. It's like, we never actually touched this bass. We just and it sounds all right to me, like if we start tweaking it, it's going to start sounding bad. So let's just leave it, just
don't wake the beast.
That was a gift from the universe that we didn't have to slave over this. And, because everything we've added is on top of that sound. If we start
Wow.
changing that foundation, we might have to change everything.
Yeah, that's
Don't
true.
wake the beast.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, it's fun though. If it was easy, it wouldn't be fun. I always have to remind myself of that. It's the painful stuff that makes it
Right.
worth doing. It is the challenge. It is like the puzzle and the mystery of it that just keeps me
Yeah.
coming back, keeps me wondering, what if I did that? What if I did that?
And I like that we have all these like everyone who produces music has all these similar struggle. It's like people who served in war together, but not as extreme. We're just like, the bass doesn't sound right. It never sounds right. And it's just
Mm.
like we have this understanding that it is escapes most people who just listen to music but don't produce it. It's funny.
I haven't met anyone that has told me it's easy. I really haven't
No.
in real life, in the podcasts, in anything. I haven't found anyone that's like, ah, man, come on. I just
Yeah.
sit down and open the program and I got a hit. Like
Yeah.
I don't
It
know
just
anyone
comes
that
out.
works for, which is
Some
not that I
some
want
people
to.
make it look easy, and
Yeah.
but you never know what's behind the scenes.
Hmm.
Like another one of my favorite bands, Bright Eyes, the singer Conor Oberst has been apparently writing and recording music since he was 4, and I don't even know what that means. How do you, like, what do you write about when you're 4? So, and he writes so many songs so often, and they're all, in my opinion, great, that I'm thinking, okay, he must be just pressing record and coming up with them on the fly, but you never know what's going on behind the
Hmm.
scenes.
Well, there's definitely the repetition helps, if you're used
Mm.
to doing it all the time. But I bet if you look at his catalog, not every song he ever recorded is on there.
Right,
He's probably got
right, for
way more
sure.
stuff that you never heard.
Yeah, it's
I would
got.
I would
I guess,
bet anyway.
like you said, if that's all he's doing, I guess it would don't maybe easier isn't the word, but you stay in the zone. Like I have snowboarded maybe 10 times in my life, but sometimes there's years in between, and when I go again I'm like, whoa, this is actually really cool. I can remember a little bit, but then I'd fall and then I'd get up again, and then by the end of it. But if I were to do that every week, then I would just make it look easy. uh, I guess you can sort of stay in the zone if you're constantly writing and recording music as well.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a momentum that happens when you just know you're doing it every day. When you're gonna do it.
yeah.
I have a time I
And
do it. It's like so many things. Yeah, we're creatures of habit, so we do adapt to that.
yeah, and this is besides just getting better at it technically, is what I'm referring to. Besides
Hmm.
that, it feels like if you just keep it going, then maybe there is all these little things that you don't forget how to do and just become habit.
Right. Yeah, just second nature. It's a mystery.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's been a lot of fun talking to you about it and trying to unravel it a little bit and figure this
Yeah,
stuff out.
same, man. Same.
I like what you're doing. I think your work is cool. It's fun to think of this as like an extension of the album art, the music and lyric video stuff. I would say go to calvinwest.com, and you're also on Instagram at calvin.west.
Correct.
And anywhere else you'd like to send people, because they can see all the video, or at least a good portion of your portfolio on your website, and they can get in contact
I
with you
think,
about mixing and mastering as well.
yeah, I
But
think,
anywhere else?
no, at the moment I'm not offering mixing. Mastering is fine, and the videos is what takes up most of my days. So, but no, that's pretty much it. If anyone wants to drop a line, and that'll be cool.
Nice. Well, check it out. CalvinWest.com. Nice and easy to remember. Thanks so much for being on the show, Calvin. Good talking to you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. If you've liked what you've heard, please stop by your local podcast provider and leave us a nice review. And if you want to support the podcast, you can do so with our Patreon at patreon.com/BrianFunk. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.